everyone, and welcome to the final episode of Mama Moves with me, Dr. Yumna. This series has been all about getting you to feel safe and secure in your movement, and it truly speaks to the fact that a healthy mom means a healthy baby. Being a new mom comes with a lot of questions, but today we're here to answer some of the most commonly asked ones with our CEO, Mahlaqa.
Thank you so much, Yumna, and thank you for the amazing tips. So personally, I am very excited about this next section because this is the most frequently asked questions by postpartum moms. And given that I am 2 months postpartum myself, in my first 2 pregnancies, I had nobody to answer these questions for me. So without further ado, we'll get into the questions that you send us the most.
So first of all, I think it's most important to kind of define what that is. A lot of people have samajh nahi aata how to differentiate between what maybe diastasis is, what maybe a mummy pooch is, actually ho kya raha hai. And the first thing jo sabse pehle hame dekhni chahiye is one, ke the uterus takes a little bit of time to go back up to where it should be. So when the uterus contracts after delivery, it goes back up to where it's supposed to be. And sometimes immediate jo effect moms ko lag raha hota hai ki oh ye kya ho gaya, that sometimes is just that. So if that takes 7 to 8 days,
and I think a week is the most, like, it's on average, but people can take more time. Some people it might happen quicker.
It can happen quicker, it can happen in a little bit more time, but week is generally an average and for that to happen. And so if it goes past that point, there can be one of two things again. One, that the uterus may not have contracted appropriately, so then that's something you need to get checked from your OBGYN. And if it's not that, then we're moving into now what the Mummy Pooch kind of territory becomes. And this is where we come into all of those things we've discussed previously also in the episodes, but more so about how the correct movements help, how your diet helps, how to get back into your routine basically. So in the episodes also, I've tried to keep it very simple because, like you may know, the most simple exercises are what's best for the postpartum period, even prenatal, but more so I would say postpartum, because that was the time where you just need to be focusing on the deep core strengthening, your TVA muscles, all the abdominal muscles of your of the abdomen, and also your breathing muscles. So something that's very important to get started right off the bat is the correct way of breathing. And I would recommend my postnatal clients that for the first 4 weeks, you should be just focusing on your correct breathing. That it's not just people who've given birth, women who've given birth who are going through this issue, even though it's one of the more common causes of having this issue. But there are a lot of other people who go through similar issues. And the easiest way to kind of, I feel, divide this is going into having a weak pelvic floor and having a very tight pelvic floor. So both are issues, right? More often than not, people, especially postnatal women, end up having a weak pelvic floor because they've gone through sort of a trauma in that area. And so they end up having issues like, which we discussed in the previous episodes, like incontinence, leakage, very common things that happen postpartum. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is having a very tight or a hypertonic pelvic floor. So too constricted, not being able, not talked about enough, actually not talked about enough at all. So a lot of the times when people are like, oh, I have a pelvic floor issue or I have a weak pelvic floor, they may actually mean they have a tight pelvic floor. So really to get that assessment done and kind of understand where your problem lies is one very important.
Like say with respect to male clients, who may approach you and they want to develop a stronger pelvic floor. Should they start doing Pilates style workouts? What are your sort of, usually men work out in a gym and that's the sort of thing.
I wouldn't necessarily say Pilates is the answer to that. I would, again, always talk about it in terms of pelvic floor rehab or targeted exercises, just like we did for the core. So deep core work, it's more deep core rehabilitation because you're kind of getting back that strength that you've lost because of so-and-so reason. So same applies for the pelvic floor as well. So a lot of targeted exercises, for example, of having a weak pelvic floor, very effective exercise is your Kegel. So learning how to engage and contract your sphincters, hold them in. The longer you hold, the more strength you build in those sphincters of having the control that you may have lost because of being postnatal or having any other issues. And similar to that, there are a lot of other exercises that help to strengthen as well as relax if you have a tight pelvic floor, right? So a lot of those exercises that can be taught and done, again, very slow, controlled, small movements that end up being the most effective thing you can do.
Perfect.
So diastasis recti, like you said, and ab separation is basically what happens naturally in all pregnancies. So first of all, understanding that it's a natural thing, it will happen regardless of what you do or not, is very important. And I think a little reassurance to a lot of women, because you need to know that it's not like you've done something wrong, that it's happening to you. It is a natural part. 100% of pregnancies, women will go through this instance. Where it becomes a problem is when it does not reverse or heal in its natural sense. That's where we need to look at how we can prevent it, or how then we can reverse it if it happens. And that separation that happens, to be able to say, I guess, prevent it from happening, is to do a lot of work on it during pregnancy. So prenatal time is actually the most important time for the kind of work that you're doing to be effective in preventing from it to develop. Yes,
I think you'd even say before pregnancy. So before you get pregnant is a great time to have a strong core.
I think always is a great time to have a strong core. And I mean, I love to teach the kind of slower, control, deep core exercises, even to women who are not even looking to get pregnant, because it's very beneficial. Some exercises that we even did in the postpartum episode videos are also very effective in the prenatal time. So those exercises are very beneficial to maintain in the pregnancy. So if you're maintaining a baseline strong, deep core, it's very unlikely that the diastasis that you develop will not reverse. And two things of advice. One is to not do a lot of the things that a lot of those core exercises are showing, right? Like we discussed earlier, the crunches, stuff that puts extra pressure on.
Yeah, because it can make it actually worse.
Yeah, it will worsen it. So a lot of the common core exercises, or ab exercises, I would say, not necessarily core exercises, do actually end up worsening your diastasis. So trying to prevent, avoid those exercises. And secondly, again, then working, of course, on your deep core. Also, another thing which I feel like is not said enough is just understanding that it's okay that the gap happened. And when it goes back, it may not be what it looked like before. So very important to kind of just let that settle and not be like, oh, I want to achieve where I was look-wise, you know, where I was before, because that's not natural. The natural process of life is what's happening to your body and all of the things that we're discussing. So just to kind of tackle that, getting back to a stronger core is more important than a physically better looking.
Absolutely, more function over looks at all times.
So, and that will come when you work on the functional movements, when you're doing things in the proper way, like we discussed in the videos of how to get up, right? So you don't ever want to get up putting load on your abdomen, which is essentially the movement of
and it's a small thing, but you might be doing it a few times in the day, right? And obviously, at least when you're sleeping, you're doing it, you're getting up from the bed, you're doing it.
100%. So just those small additions into your life, and again, having an educated coach will really benefit here.
Thank you for answering all these questions for us today. I hope that, you know, this will go out to women who really needed this.
Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in.